Every person with dyslexia is different, no two people are the same.
Colin is dyslexic. Before being diagnosed, he says it ruined the first 37 years of his life. But now a Manchester MP says his condition is a myth.
Can make people live great and fulfillful lives.
Writing on this website, Graham Stringer says the education establishment invented a brain disorder called dyslexia. Also, to label children as dyslexic is wicked. He goes on, dyslexia is a cruel fiction, and that it's time the dyslexia industry was killed off.
Graham Stringer telling me I've not got dyslexia. Well, I'll tell you, Graham, come and talk to me and I'll tell you about my life experiences. I'll tell you about my education. I'll tell you about my lack of employment opportunities. I'll tell you about the rubbish jobs I've had to do because of my dyslexia. And the people forever call me thick, lazy and stupid.
The problem, so says Graham Stringer, is here in the classroom. He blames dyslexia on poor teaching, asking why the condition is in this country when in South Korea literacy rates are at 100%.
One of the problems with English is that our phonology system, our system of sounds and their corresponding letters, is actually very complex. There are fewer people with dyslexia in countries such as Italy and Spain, for example, where their language is much more easier to do in a phonetic way.
1 in 10 people in the northwest are said to be dyslexic. Campaigners say Graham Stringer is wrong.
I've struggled all my life with my reading, my writing and short-term memory. Graham Stringer needs to come and walk a mile in my shoes to understand what it's like to be dyslexic. I know you had problems at school and reading and writing is not your forte.
At Thomas, Northwest Tonight.
Well, earlier I spoke to Graham Stringer and I asked him how he thought the millions of people certified as having dyslexia would feel about him calling it a cruel myth.
The evidence is overwhelming from a number of studies that if English is taught properly and using the right methods, people can achieve 100% literacy and accurate spelling. I think when you look at that evidence, then the idea that dyslexia exists just disappears.
Well, if that was the case, why do you think the government accepts that it does? Because they officially class it as a disability. The local authorities accept it, and hardly would unless there was a strong body of evidence to support the condition, which the Dyslexia Action Group say there is.
Well, there is a huge body of evidence. There's been a recent trial in Western Bartonshire where they'd got levels of illiteracy of more than a quarter, and they reduced it to 0 over 6 years by using the right methods. If dyslexia existed, then it would exist in countries like Spain and South Korea, where they've got simpler languages phonetically, and all the children learn to read there. So what we need is the right and correct teaching methods, not having an industry that is based on telling children they've got something wrong with them, when what is wrong are the teaching methods.
Right, well, I mean, the fact exists that millions of people have learning difficulties. Now, that may be down to teaching, as you say, it may be down to a condition called dyslexia, but it does need to be tackled. So, bearing that in mind, do you think it is helpful to use emotive phrases when you claim that dyslexia is an invention to cover bad teaching? You say it is a cruel myth. You even say it is wicked to label children with dyslexia and suggest some people are trying to gain advantage by claiming it.
I think labelling children as having something wrong with them when it is the teaching methods that are wrong is wicked. Children who grow up into adults not being able to read or spell both have a personally dissatisfying life in many
but do you not
ways,
think they're
and
feeling
it leads to all
insulted
sorts
tonight?
of social consequences. So I think that the issue should be aired, and we should have this debate out in the open, because a quarter of our fellow citizens, almost a quarter of our fellow citizens, are functionally illiterate. It's not something that we have to put up with. We know the right teaching methods to use. We should use them.
Graham Stringer, we have to stop there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Gordon.